Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I decided to do another tier list because it's only suitable with the last video being a tier list discussing hand traps. So today's video is going to be a tier list discussing tech choices for the current format we are in. Like I mentioned in the previous video, the format has essentially changed a bit with the release of the Alba Strike structure deck, which really took the meta by storm. So yeah, I think it's cool if we cover the tech choices as well as like we covered the hand traps. So with that being said, first I would like to encourage you to let me know down in the comments what you think after watching this tier list and maybe which tech choices you are implementing into your strategies. And also I would like to encourage you to subscribe because a lot of you are still not, and I would love for you to be part of this community. And with that being said, we can go ahead and get started. I did add some cards to my usual tier list of tech choices, so there's that, but other than that we have quite a lot of cards to cover, and the tiers are the same as always. They're still very suitable in my opinion, and it's easy to sort of not get caught up in having too many tiers, and we can arrange everything accordingly. So starting off with the first addition to the tier list, and it's going to be anti-magic arrows. And I'm actually considering putting this in the good tier, but maybe at the bottom, because I think the card is very cool and also strong. Like, it's kind of niche in a way where you cannot use, my emphasis should be on you cannot use spell and trap cards as well as your opponent. So yeah, you're shutting your opponent off, but you need to keep in mind that you sort of need to play your cards properly to achieve some kind of result without actually using spell and trap cards. So I think the card is incredible, and I will, I guess, point out that a couple of those new additions, there are some that I like more than this one in particular, but I still think it's a really good choice, and it also catches your opponent off guard completely. So you also have that element of surprise if you're adding a card like this to your strategy. Then moving on, we have Zuking Alpha. As usual, I will be putting it in the not worth it category. I think with a card like this, it's still not enough that it trades, you know, 1-for-1 with a disruption. It's kind of specific, and it's sort of like Pancratops at 1. Like, I could draw the comparison there because obviously Zuking Alpha is not a 1, but Pancratops, forgot the name for a split second. Pancratops doesn't feel like it's impactful enough with it being at 1, and I sort of feel that same way about Zuking Alpha even though it's at 3, because Pancratops' effect is inherently stronger in my opinion. So yeah, overall Alpha just doesn't feel like it's worth running in this particular point in time, only because it's, like I said before, not as impactful, and you have many other things that you would much rather side and have the ability to cover more cards when you're trying to disrupt your opponent and actually like break their board with something like Droplet, something like Dark Ruler, a lot of other hand traps. You sort of do more and achieve more in terms of actually combating a lot of cards in your opponent's strategy, not just one with Zuking Alpha. So hopefully this makes sense. It's not a bad card, but currently it's just not as strong. Then we have Anti-Spell Fragrance. I will put it in good. I like putting Anti-Spell in good because it's very, very strong, and it will probably stay somewhere towards the top. The card is just incredible. Like, having the ability to shut off spell cards without you actually hurting, like you just play your cards properly and you should be fine with Anti-Spell face up on the field, but you shut your opponent off. And spell cards being as strong as they are and as essential to being, you know, as essential part of a strategy as they are, it's very, very strong and impactful if you're able to shut them off, at least for one turn. You know, even that makes a difference. Then we have a Pointer of the Red Lotus. I will put it in not worth it, somewhere towards the bottom probably. It's sort of the same as I did it in the last video. I'm still not a fan of cards being sort of win more going first cards if you're going first strategy is going first anyway. So like, if it's strong anyway, you're sort of just adding bricks to your deck by playing cards like these. So I'm not particularly a fan of it, but that's sort of to each their own. And yeah, the next one is going to be called by I will put it in staple. Like in the previous video, called by is just so strong. Even though it's at 1, it's still incredible. And also right now, and I mean, it's always been sort of not just a way to combat hand traps, but also a way to be a disruption. But what I wanted to emphasize on right now is it's amazing against Brandon in red, being able to banish their target in the graveyard. And just, you know, looking at something like Fairy Tale Snow, DPE, the DPE bricks, I mean, 1 brick Celestial being the follow-up. Anything that's very, very strong in the graveyard and that can activate there is also a nice way to utilize Called by the Grave. So I still think it's a staple in every single strategy. Then we have Forbidden Chalice. I'm actually considering, yeah, I think I'll put it in not worth it. It's not enough because I still don't view this sort of trade-off, this 1-for-1 trade-off as being strong enough, just because boards overall are as strong as they are, and because something like Impermanence is a 1-for-1 trade-off. But Impermanence does more, being able to negate the column as well, and also acting as a pseudo hand trap, whereas something like Chalice being able to only be used, you know, when you're going second, or if you set it beforehand, that it just feels like it's not at the level of something like Impermanence, and I don't, I just don't see it being relevant right now. Then moving on, we have Cosmic Cyclone, and I think I'll put Cosmic in staple together with probably Twin Twister as well when we get to it, but I guess I could, you know, pull it up from under there right now. I think both Cosmic and Twister have always been impactful. Firstly, being able to deal with the back row decks, and something like Outlich, Cyberse Outlich, which is obviously still a thing. You can deal with Conquistador and Hakara that way. You can also combat Pandemonium in the draw phase. You can get rid, right now, you can get rid of Branded in Red being a disruption when Chimera pops your cards. And then also you have It's an Out to Mystic Mine, which is also cool. Cosmic itself is a great out to Artifact Scythe, which is still a thing in today's meta. So I could go on and on why back row removal is incredible and strong and should be cited probably in every single strategy. And yeah, it definitely makes sense to put both of these in the staple category. Then we have Crossout Designator, and I will put it in staple. We can see Crossout pop up here and there, you know, in different deck lists a couple weeks back, but right now it's really gaining popularity together with some other cards. One in particular, it's really started to get strong, and right now it's been strong for quite some time, because you just need to find that perfect format in which it's so incredible that you can also effectively use it in a mirror match. Because when mirror matches are like a thing, you know, when you would see this one deck dominate and a lot of people decide to pick it up, which right now with Despia we can see that happening. Like, people just like the deck overall, doesn't really need the Brave Engine if you don't want to invest into it. Aluber just got reprinted, and it's a good deck. Like, it's just a really good deck choice. So Crossout, consequently, of course, is going to get picked up a lot, is going to get used a lot, because you cannot only use it, I mean, you can use it not only to combat hand traps, but also to utilize it in a mirror match, which is really strong. Then the next card, which is I'll put it at the top of good. It's not exactly a staple, but it's also one of those that really started to see play in the side decks as of late, because the dimensional barrier is it's very nice. Like, it's honestly so good being able to shut off one specific way of summoning, which right now with Despia domination it would be fusion summoning, and it is a hard going first card, which, like I said, I keep mentioning that I'm not a huge fan of, but when it's as impactful as this, and also something like Solemn Judgment, which we will also talk about, is sort of as impactful as it can be, you know, going first. So I'm a fan of those cards in particular, and D-Barrier being one of them. It's just it's very strong if utilized correctly, you know, sided against correct matchups, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a really nice card and sees a lot of play, which I think is cool. Then we have Dark Ruler, and I'll put Dark Ruler in good. and I'll keep it somewhere in the middle probably, because Dark Ruler is really nice, but it has this limiting ability to only be able to affect the field that you will play Dark Ruler into. So with Branded in Red being able to summon a monster and provide that disruption whenever your opponent pleases, and with Pandemonium being able to do the same thing, you essentially, if you Dark Ruler at that point, you're just getting rid of those negates that are on board currently. So at that point you would probably choose to play Droplets instead of Dark Ruler, but Droplets is expensive and I get that, and it's really annoying that that's the way it is. So Dark Ruler is still not a bad choice. That's why I'm putting it in good, because you can side it and just, you know, use it and do well with it, but I would still rather play something like Droplets if you can get your hands on them. Then we have different like Dimension Ground. I'll put it in not worth it. This card has always been very specific, and I sort of touched upon Droplets a bit. It's essentially a better Dark Ruler, a better Impermanence, even being able to prevent a lot of different monsters from being able to disrupt you, and also its ability for your opponent that they cannot respond depending on the type of card you would pitch. It's nice. It's all around an incredibly strong card. Also, having the attack portion of its effect, like everything just rounds this card completely into this amazing, you know, incredible card that just it's lame that it's as expensive as it is, because if everybody could get their hands on Droplets, I think that would be really nice, because it's just a great card to combat a very big board that you would want to break, and in tandem with then using your strategy and your disruptions, you actually can turn the game completely around if you're able to utilize Droplets, and I think that's really nice. So a very strong card indeed. Then we have Evenly Matched, and let's see. I think I'll put Evenly Matched in good, because it's very strong against prank hits. Like every time someone goes like, okay, battle phase, I start to sweat, because it's like, what do you want to keep? Do you want to keep pranks being the follow-up? Do you want to keep Pandemonium? If you want to keep Pandemonium, you cannot keep the prank hit that's on defense on your side of the field, usually at the end of your combo. If they baited out the Griffin negate already, then you really, you know, have no choice. You need to leave the token, which is also so horrible. So at that point, you would need to, I guess, beforehand think about that, pop it with DPE, but that's in a scenario where all of your engines are online, which is usually not the case. So if you're only, I guess, playing the prank hit side of your deck, then you don't have the negate anyway, and you need to decide what you want to keep. So yeah, as you can see, it's kind of, it puts a prank hit player, you know, in a bit of a struggle, and it's not the only deck that you can effectively utilize it against. Also, other strategies that maybe play the Brave stuff trades off with one negate, but also if you baited it out beforehand, you can just drop evenly on them and just look at them banish everything. Eldritch is pretty much the same, you know, you trade off with the negate and it's whatever. And then in the case of Despia, they would usually end on more cards than just one. It's not much more, you know, in a scenario where they have Mirror Jade and then set Branded in Red, or they have Mirror Jade and also Dragostapelia, which at that point you really get rid of most of their board. It's also nice, but like, I guess it feels a bit too situational. You also need to give your battle phase, and you need to be able to bait out that negate beforehand. So it's very specific. And if you're not really a fan of that, you don't need to run evenly. But if you're in a meta where, for example, it's also swarming with trap decks or pure Eldritch or stuff like that, then I guess it would be a good choice. That's why I'm putting it somewhere in the middle of the good category. Then we have Galaxy Cyclone. It's decent. It should probably be the first card to go into the decent category. It's nice, but it's other back row removal cards are just stronger. And then we have Kaijus, which Kaiju is kind of similar to Zuking Alpha, but I still think it's a bit stronger because it can deal with cards that, for example, cannot be targeted, you know, just cannot be disrupted with Zuking Alpha, even though it's a one, you know, trading off with one. All of the reasons I sort of said before when it comes to Zuking Alpha should probably go for Kaijus as well, but I still view Kaijus as being a bit better. So yeah, I think the decent category I think would be really nice. Then we have Gozen, and I will put Gozen and also Rivalry together with it here in the good category. Let me just find Rivalry. Okay, we have Rivalry here. I'll put both of them in good, sort of above all of that. Maybe even above Dark Ruler. I think we should arrange everything that way. Yeah, and I think I'll put evenly in the middle. And that's just because right now I can see Rivalry being a bit better than Gozen in a way that a deck can utilize it, because Sorzo has been seen to run Rivalry, and I think that's really nice. Like, Gozen can be used in something like Dispia if you really want, but I see a lot of different cards being run in the Dispia side deck that just feel more, they just make more sense and you don't really have that much space. However, Rivalry and Gozen are very nice in an Eldritch deck, like in a pure Eldritch deck or something like Earth Machine, you know, those very specific strategies. But yeah, me putting evenly here in the middle just indicates that right now a very good deck being Sorzo can utilize Rivalry to its potential. That's why it's a bit higher than Gozen. And both of them, of course, looking at it, you know, how they affect the meta, they're really, really, really strong. Then we have Harpies. I'll put it at the top of good. Like, it's a really nice card, but if you choose to side something else and you don't really have that one extra slot for Harpies, then I guess it's not that necessary. Usually what I like to do is I would reserve about 5 side deck slots for back row decks. So it will be 3 of either Twin Twister or Cosmic, and then maybe a Rev Reboot and Harpies. That's like ideal, I guess. But you can really decide for yourself. Then we have Ice Dragon's Prison, and I guess I'll put it in where do I want to put it? It's really strong, but it cannot be used, you know, in any other strategy almost than just Outlich. So that's why it's at the bottom of good. And it's not that the card is bad, it's just that, you know, only Outlich can effectively play it, or something like a very chap heavy deck. So yeah, I wouldn't place it any higher than that, because it cannot be really used in all of the other strategies. Then we have Judgment. I'll put Judgment at the top of decent. It's better than decent in how strong it is. But would you really, like, at this point in time, do you really want to dedicate your side deck slots to Judgment if you can play something else? And the answer would probably be no, just because the format is sort of like, it's defined in a way where, you know, we see some of the decks that we know have been there for a very long time, when we sort of know how to combat them. And then we have Dispia, and it's sort of like, okay, you need to combat Dispia with Bell and maybe Super Poly, and you also have other cards. And at that point, you just run out of space to run something like Solemn Judgment. But I will maybe still cite it in something like a Prankets deck, where you really, you know, just want some cards to sort of switch out when you're going first, and you want to protect your Pandemonium at all costs. So it's nice, you know, it has some implications, but it's not exactly the best card. Then we have Lava Golem. Yeah, Lava Golem is not bad. It's let's see, I'll put it in good, actually, maybe above Ice Dragon's Prison, because in tandem with it, you know, the Eldritch deck can play it, and it's just a nice way to get rid of a disruption very easily, but it's still very niche, because obviously not every deck can run it. And I guess together with that, we can also put Sphere Mode here, but I would put Sphere Mode a bit lower, maybe down here, just because it's not bad, but you don't always combat a board that actually has 3 disruptions on it. So, you know, at that point, you would probably rather play Lava Golem. Okay, then we have Lightning Storm. I'll put Lightning Storm in good, but actually somewhere down here probably. Like, over here I think would be perfect. It's just not... It's not doing anything right now. Like, it doesn't have any kind of impact, I feel like. The Eldritch deck protects itself anyway with the Sky Prison monster. And then you have all of the other, like, monster disruptions that are usually summoned in defense anyway. DPE revives itself, so DPE really doesn't care. Something like a Dispia deck, if you get rid of a Dispia and they have this ability to summon a Luber out, then at that point... you know, you're sort of giving them pluses, and they don't have anything in attack anyway, usually. And it's just not, yeah, it's not really that impactful. And then looking at how you can disrupt the back row, at that point you would probably use a back row removal, and just don't use Lightning Storm, because it has this restriction of you not, you know, having to not control face-up cards. So it's also specific in that way. You need to draw into it going second. It's not something you can draw effectively like during the game or in late games. So yeah, it's just not, it's a nice card, but right now I don't think it's the time for it. Okay, then we have Magical Spring, and Magical Spring is really nice, but I would probably put it here in decent, just because in theory, yeah, you can draw cards, which is nice, but you will be able to prevent Scythe from being destroyed, so you don't get Scythe locked. But I just don't see people using the Scythe lock that much. It's really not something that you see a lot of right now, which is sort of interesting looking at it. And of course, like, it's still here, it's still strong, and should be banned in my opinion, because it's uninteractive and just annoying overall. So if you have a, you know, if you play Magical Spring and have a way to prevent Scythe from being destroyed, so you stay in the game, all of that, it's nice, but it's not yeah, I don't think it's worth it right now to dedicate your side deck slots to that in particular. But then we have Mind Control, and Mind Control will go down here and not worth it, just because it's a 1, and it's not, it being at 1 makes it, I don't think, as good. So yeah, not really much to say about it. Like, the card is nice and all, but the moment it went to 1, it was just sort of like, okay, we probably won't run it, because it just doesn't make any sense. If your side deck is built very specifically to how you want to side in and out, then you have actually 1 more slot, sure, but at that point you would probably put Pankratops in, so not worth it compared to other cards, is my point. Okay, then we have Mystic Mine, and I think I want to put Mystic Mining good, but maybe not that high, just because I guess over here would be fine. Essentially, this PIA doesn't have spell trap removal, however they do have snow, and snow is a great way to play around Mystic Mine. Yeah, Prankets don't really care about it. Other decks have negate anyway, so at that point you're just trading, you use hand traps, you're trading, and then also using something like droplets. You have a lot more ways to break a board, so if this is a way you want to play, then that's cool. You can also utilize it in a Flunder deck, in a Prankets deck, like in a Sky Striker deck. You know, it has some ways to be used in the meta, so I think it should go in the good category. Okay, then the next one is going to be Night Beam, and this is the one I was telling you about, how there's a new card over here next to Anti-Magic Arrows on this tier list, and I think Night Beam is much better than it. I know that it doesn't exactly prevent spell cards from being activated, and it only does target one set one, but at that point, you know, you target that one Pandemonium or that one Branded in Red, and that's pretty much all you need. Like, if you have a way to go through the board anyway, and then you have this to target a specific card that you know is going to be an issue, I think that's kind of neat. Like, it comes as a surprise to your opponent, so that's also cool. And overall, yeah, I think this card is really, really nice. Obviously, like, you know, not everybody plays it, and it's sort of very niche, but I still want to have it here in the good category. Then we have Pankratops. Pankratops is, I don't know, like, it's decent. That's so weird, putting Pankratops in decent, but it doesn't see play. It's only at 1, and at this point in time, that's not worth it. And I don't think I need to repeat myself once more. Pretty much everything that's been said has been said already. It's not worth it. Then we have Red Reboot. I'll put it at the top of good again. And I'm pretty sure that in the last video I mentioned that. If I haven't, maybe I just think I have. But basically, Red Reboot is not in staple because not every single deck can run it, and that's pretty much it. Like, most of them can, so if you have 1 more slot and you want to have like 5 or 6 to combat a back row deck, then cool, just play Red Reboot because it's really strong. But yeah, it cannot be used in every single deck, so it just shouldn't go in staple. And then the next card we have over here is going to be Raigeki, and I actually want to put Raigeki in good, but I haven't decided where exactly yet. Maybe above Mystic Mine. I guess they can both go in tandem since they both see play in a Thunder deck. And also, I think Raigeki is better than Lightning Storm because Lightning Storm just has less applications. And yeah, Raigeki it's very interesting seeing it at 3. And I think that's kind of nice. Like, it's just a way to sort of force your opponent, you know, to have a disruption or to have, you know, something to deal with that threat of Raigeki being at 3 and, you know, actually seeing play. So yeah, I think that's really nice. Like, it's a really cool card, and I like to see it having play, basically. Then we have Artifact Sanctum, and I think I'll put Sanctum in decent. Maybe like sort of at the top of decent, because the card is still really nice, but I don't see it, you know, in actual deck lists. And that's probably because people use other cards, and also because side locking is sort of falling out of favor. But you can still play it in like a Sky Striker deck, in like pretty much anything else that you can dedicate those 4 side deck slots to it. I think it's nice, you know. You can also, together and in tandem with that, you also have Lancia if you want to use Lancia against certain matchups. So it's nice, but it's not really seeing a lot of play. Then we have Shared Ride, and I will put Shared Ride, I guess, above Night Beam, like over here in the Gig category, because the card is really nice. But you need to sort of, I guess, tailor your deck to play it. If you have, similarly to what I mentioned before with Prank Kits, if you have something in the main deck that you would rather switch out when you're going first, Shared Ride is a great choice just because people search so much, obviously, like decks search a lot. And also with the Brave engine, like this engine itself, it provides your opponent with so many draws. So if you go Enchantress, you need to go get Right. With Right, you would, place Faithful, and then Faithful searches the Draco back and also the Griffin. So this is 3 draws in itself, like in the engine. And if you pair that up with something like a Blankets deck or something else, you can see where I'm going with this. Shared Ride would draw a lot of cards, and yeah, the card is just really, really nice, especially if you're playing a strategy that really can draw into hand traps. And with the amount of hand traps people still like to play, this is sort of like the perfect combination. So yeah. Then we have Skill Drain, and Skill Drain is, you know, it's, I guess, decent. I don't know, like, I guess somewhere at the middle of decent. I guess over here. Like, let's not do injustice to Skill Drain because it's still a strong card. But it's just not, you know, it's not really seeing a lot of play, which is interesting. But at the same time, which deck would seriously play it? Like Eldritch, yeah, but that's pretty much it. Similarly to IDP, like, yeah, it can be used in a specific strategy and it's good, but Skill Drain is still like, Prankers just play around it like it's nothing, and I don't know, it's a nice card, but it's not seeing as much play and impact as maybe we anticipated. And yeah, something like Rivalry and Gozen will still, I think, in my opinion, be better than Skill Drain looking at it. So I guess decent, maybe, I don't know, since I put IDP in good, maybe I should put Skill Drain there as well, but like, I don't know. All of these cards, like IDP, like Skill Drain, like Rivalry, those unsearchable cards, they're strong and all, but you need to draw into them, so I don't know. I just don't know. I'm sort of iffy on Skill Drain, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Then we have Solemn Strike. I think I'll put it in not worth it. Yeah, not worth it, I think would be fitting. Like, the card is okay, and it's also nice here it's under Judgment, because Judgment is still stronger than it. And if a card like Skill Drain, a card like Strike can be effectively used in one strategy, it doesn't really make it so it's nice overall. Like, we're not doing a tier list for one specific strategy, we're doing it for the entire meta. And yeah, I mean, actually looking at Skill Drain right now, hold on, let me sort of think about that. So I think I'll move both of them to not worth it, actually. Yeah, because it can really only be used in one strategy. And I guess IDP is in the good category, and it can also be effectively used in only one strategy. So I will be moving IDP down here to decent, and I think that's how it should honestly stay. Yeah, I think I'm satisfied with that. Okay, moving on from all of these traps, we have three more. There's a lot of them. Okay, let's just throw everything into not worth it, because looking at it down here, it's not really worth it. We have summon limit. Other floodgates are much stronger, and yeah, it can be used in a trap heavy deck, like I mentioned before, but something like summon limit can easily be outed much more easily than, is that an expression? Much more easily? I don't know. You know, much more easily, I guess, than Rivalry and Gozen. So yeah, summon limit, it's okay and all, but you know, not really worth it. Together with it, Torrential, like all of these cards, you know, they're just trap cards. And something like a Prank Kids deck actually can play around it. Also, I mean, more decks can play around it and cards, but Prank Kids, you know, being something I run, I obviously know how to play around Torrential specifically with you making something that's not a summon chainlink 1, so Torrential cannot trigger because it's a 1 effect. And then we have There Can Be Only One also, and yeah, There Can Be is nice, but Rivalry and Gozen are at this point in time much better in my opinion. So There Can Be used against something like, you know, Swords. So also Prank Kids can play around it, and other decks are just not as impacted by it, I think. So it's not bad. I think I'll put it at the bottom of decent, because it's still not like exactly a horrible card. But right now it's just not, it's not at the level of Rivalry and Gozen, I think. And then we have two more, and they're both really, really nice and really impactful. So I'm excited to round the video off with these two. First off, we have Super Poly, and I'll put Super Poly at the top of good, at the very, very, very top of good. And why that is obviously because of Despia. I don't think I'm going to be putting it in staple, just because a lot of decks just tend to cite other things and maybe don't have enough space to also run Super Poly and the targets. And that's pretty much the only reason, because Super Poly is very strong. It can also be used against DPE, but people tend to play around that, so that's something to keep in mind. But with Despia being as impactful, yeah, I mean, it was a good choice of words, as impactful as it was on the meta, we might even see, you know, it being even more dominant, and at that point most of us will probably have to make space for that Super Poly. And then we also have Talent, which I don't think I'll put it in staple, but similarly to where do I want to put it? I think I put it at the top of good. All of these four are really, really, really nice cards. I might even move it. Let's move it here. That's perfect. So Talent, I think, is incredible. It's so strong. Going second as well as going first, you're able to draw. You're able to deal with a disruption. Obviously, you're also able to look at your opponent's hand and get knowledge. Cards do tend to activate during the main phase, especially with DPE, with Mirror Jade, with Guardian Chimera, with Butler. You just have a lot of ways to trigger the talents. It's not really, you know, seeing play in every single strategy. That's why I'm not putting it in staple just yet, but it really has started to gain popularity. Also, with the amount of hand traps people are still running, most of the time you will be able to activate it. So yeah, I think this tier list is really nice. It really took me some time to decide on some cards, but right now I think everything is pretty much perfect. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any cards I maybe missed, anything that's seeing play, maybe what you're running, all of that. And also like the video if you liked it, and check out all of the social media, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!